Latest football news, engaging debates,
and fascinating opinions.
Pitchside Talk on IO Radio. Hello and welcome to Pitchside Talk here on YouTube with me, George. Hope that you're all good and keeping well in this beautiful weather that we've got at the moment. It's currently blue skies here. And well, what are we doing in this video? Well, before I get into that, I better mention the social medias, Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram talk_pitch, YouTube is at Pitchside Talk, which we're actually currently on at the moment, and the Mixcloud, which is Pitchside Talk as well. And if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure to click that subscribe button below so you don't miss another video of us. Well, let's jump straight into this video, and I'm joined today by our co-host and Ipswich Town fan, Dan. Dan, it is beautiful weather, but how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited about the video, and yes, it's really nice today. Weird weather for March, isn't it?
Yeah, it's weird weather, but spring is finally here. Things are slightly looking a little bit better, which is kind of nice. Well, as you just mentioned about, yes, the video today, it is an exciting video. We're going to be looking at the 13 players who are currently out of contract this summer with Ipswich Town, and we're going to be discussing with you, Dan, about who should be staying and who will be going. It's a stay or go. It's a brand new game show that I've just made for this. But are you ready to go for this today?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's jump straight into this. Well, one of the players whose contract is up in the summer is one of the most experienced, loyal, and the captain who has spent 9 seasons at Ipswich Town. It is Luke Chambers. His contract is up this summer. He has played 33 times this season, only missing 2 of those games, but he has played mostly at right back this season because of Kane Vincent-Young's injury. But Dan, he's now 35 years old. He's not getting any younger. But this is a tricky one here because he is the captain here. He has been a big part of this side for so many years. I think 9 years, I said. And he's a big part of that dressing room. But going forward, is he a part of Paul Cook's plans here? Because if not, it's going to be hard. But this is probably the hardest one we're going to do actually here because he's the captain here, and he is the biggest part of this club.
Yeah, it definitely is a hard one, and to start with this one, it's difficult. Yeah, he makes such a difference to that team. I think he's such a good leader. He's been at the club for so long now. He's been through a lot of good moments and bad moments, mostly bad moments. But you can't take away the fact that how good of a servant to the club he's been, and he's been a good captain. And I respect him as a player. I don't think his quality in the game sometimes comes into question. I think he makes a lot of mistakes, whether he's playing centre back or right back. I think he had a pretty good start to the season this year at right back, but as most of the players in the squad, that's kind of fizzled away a bit into mid-season and into now. So I think to the future, if Paul Cook's looking to the future, he's 35 now, isn't he? I really do think that players like this who, have been a servant to the club but are moving on now, they need to be moved on. We need to sort out replacements and new players coming in because I think we need a big clear out this year. So Chambers, I hate to say it because I love him as a player and the captain of this club, but I think if we're looking into the future, then I think we need to move on from him.
Well, I'm going to have to ask you the ultimate question here. I think I know what your answer is, but Dan, is Luke Chambers staying or is he going this summer?
For me, he's going.
He's going. Well, that is the first one on the list. I think the toughest one of all because he is such, I think, a legend of this club, and he's been through so much high moments and low moments here at Ipswich Town. But Luke Chambers, unfortunately, is not getting re-signed this summer, according to Dan. Well, up next is the second most experienced and loyal player at Ipswich Town. It is Cole Skuse. We love a bit of Cole Skuse. He's been in the club for 8 years now, but this season has been very tough for him, only playing twice this season, which was only a few weeks ago versus Plymouth and Fleetwood, if I am correct. But he's returned back to fitness after that freak knee injury he picked up at the end of the pre-season. But Dan, this is another tricky one. Like Luke Chambers here, a very loyal player, hasn't played quite recently. He's only just got back up to full fitness after being injured at the end of preseason. And we were in March he started playing. But is this one a bit more harder to predict, really? Because does he get a free pass here? Because he hasn't had a chance to prove himself in this new side, and Paul Cook sort of what he wants to do here. And he could, be like Luke Chambers here, a crucial part in that dressing room talk when there's experience needed in this side.
Yeah, it's really difficult with these players because they bring the experience, don't they, and the leadership that we need in the side. But as I said before, I think it's similar to Chambers in that we need a clear out, and I think Scouse, as he said, he's had a really tough season this year with injury, and he's finally come back. I think he gets a lot of hate for no reason. I think he does settle that squad, that midfield. I don't think he's a bad player at all. And the same as Chambers, he's been a great servant to the club. He's been here for so long, and he's also witnessed so much at this club. So yeah, it's another really difficult decision for me with this one. But I don't think it's long until his time is over. He said that he wanted to stay on a few more years, and he's going to be fit enough to stay. But I think the same with Chambers. These players need to be moved on soon because it's just getting stale at this club now, and I think that we need wholesale changes in the summer, and I think this is one of them that needs to go ahead. But I still find it difficult because I know that experience is needed in this squad, but I'm still going to say that he's going because I just can't see a future for Scouse at this club, unfortunately.
Well, you've just given me a little bit of your answer there, but I'm going to ask you once again, just to lock it in. We have to lock in your answer. Dan, is Cole Scouse staying or is he going at the end of this season?
He's going.
He is going. Well, that's two now on the going list here. Out of the 13, Luke Chambers and Cole Scouse are both out. In Dan's prediction here, they will not be staying on Ipswich Town at the end of the season for furthermore. But a player that we're now going to talk about who's been doing quite well recently is James Wilson. He joined last season after being dropped by Lincoln City, signing that 18-month contract. I think he was on a trial basis at the start of the sort of when he joined, and then in October he played well. He got an 18-month contract. But this season's been a very mixed bag for him. He started the first 8 games, but then 2 losses in a row saw him get dropped. And he did not return for another 18 games, which was actually against Oxford, which they drew 0-0 back in February. But since then, he's been a different player, a goal scorer, been very solid and very consistent in his return. But Dan, would it be fools not to keep him on here, James Wilson, because he's been playing so well recently, and we need some experience at the back, and he's been playing quite well in his new partnership with Toto Enciala, whose contract's up as well, but we'll be getting onto him a little bit later on. But would it just be fools here not to just get him on another 18-month contract here and have some experience at the back if you let him go of Scouse and Chambers?
Yeah, I think it's the obvious thing to do, isn't it? He's a player that, when we signed him, it was just to kind of replace who left in that summer when we signed him. Into the first season in League One. So no one was really expecting anything from him, but he's done really well here. He's such a, I'd say he's a very solid defender. He does the simple things well. We've said that a lot. And I think that's part of his game. And he's solid every time he plays, but he plays, it seems. So, he brings that experience. He's had a lot of time at clubs in League 1 and 2. So, he brings that experience, and he's had a really good season this year, I think. Looked really, really good at times. So, yeah, I think it would be stupid not to give him a new contract because I think that we need to expect us to still be in League 1 next year because, that's looking like that's what's going to happen. So, yeah, I think he'd be really good to keep for next season.
Well, then I can sort of guess what you're going to say at the moment. But Dan, is James Wilson going to be staying or going at the end of this season?
he's going to be staying. It's hard to say, not say the answer, but yeah, he's staying.
Well, you can talk about, but you're going to have to lock it in. It's like, who wants to be a millionaire? I have to ask, is that your final answer? Because,
Okay.
But, James Wilson, he's going to be staying at Ipswich Town, according to Dan. But what about his partner, as I mentioned, in defence, Toto Enciala? His contract is up. He's in the same boat, actually, as James Wilson this season. He started the season quite well, but a few mistakes here and there saw him out of the side. But then he was in and out, in and out. But then he came back in like James Wilson at the same time. Played very well against Oxford, we could say. Been very consistent, and his last-ditch tackles have really saved Ipswich Town, even though they have frightened me a little bit when they have gone towards goalwards and hit the post and gone off. But a very nice guy off the pitch in his work in the community. But in the fan base, he's a bit of Marmite, I think we can say, really. Some fans love him, some fans don't. But Dan, what do you think about Toto Enciala? Should he be staying, or do you agree with the fans? Is he a bit of Marmite? He's last-ditch tackles save Ipswich Town, but sometimes his mistakes do cost them a point or 3 points sometimes.
It does, yeah. And I think you're right. Some people hate him, some people love him. But I think he's a player that's kind of gone under the radar in the last few months. I really do. He's come back into the side. A lot of people disagreed with that, but I think he's been absolutely fantastic when he's come back. He seems to have got his mistake. Last season and the season before, you knew that there was going to be a penalty or a red card or something when he's playing. But this season, he seems to have sorted that out a little bit, or especially after I guess January. I think there was a few at the start of the season, a few games where a lot of mistakes were being made. But I think he's really, I don't know if he's done that in training or whatever, but he's really looked good since he's come back into the squad, and I think he's probably been one of our best players. It's hard to choose who's been our best player in the last few months or so, but I think he's definitely up there with one of my choices. So yeah, I would on. Same with Wilson. He's had experience at this level. He's a really solid defender on his day. He has a mistake in him, but I think that we can risk that. I think we can risk a mistake or two in favour of him being a really good defender at this club. So I think it would be stupid not to keep him on.
Well, I'm going to ask you to lock in your answer here, Dan. Is Toto Enciala staying, or is he going at the end of the season? Staying. Well, it's currently now 2-2 actually. In the staying pile, it's currently James Wilson and Toto Enciala who are staying, and in the going pile is Luke Chambers and Cole Skews. Well, another player, who's old, he's experienced, and he's the only player on this list that joined last summer. It is Stephen Ward. His 1-year contract is up. Another player, as I mentioned there, in the 35-year-old club with Luke Chambers and Cole Skews. He had a very strong start to the season, we could say, really. He played very well, but then he suffered that injury to his Achilles tendons, if I'm correct. But since then, he hasn't come back and looked the same player. But then Miles Kenlock, he burst into life. He played very well against Crewe Alexander, where Ward was struggling to reclaim his place inside. But these last 3 games, he has come back in because of Miles Kenlock sort of going off a little bit of form. But Dan, another player who's got plenty of experience here. He's been there. He's done it. He's done it with other clubs in the Premier League and in the international level. He we could say, hit the same boat as Luke Chambers and sort of Cole Skews. He provides experience in the dressing room, and something that's lacking a lot in this Ipswich side. But have unfortunately his legs gone a little bit here at Ipswich Town, because he wasn't playing at Stoke for last season for about half of it, and he was gone there anyway.
Yeah, I think he's just getting to him a little bit, but I think he was a signing when he came in at the start of this season. I don't think it excited anyone. It was just us under the previous management going for a player that on paper looked all right because he's played for Ireland a few times or played in the Premier League in the past, and that's not what we wanted to go for. But at the start of the season, he proved me wrong. He put in some really good performances at the start of the year. at left back. But then, of course, he got injured and he hasn't really looked the same since, has he? I don't know what happened. I guess the injury is still with him, maybe. I don't really know, but he hasn't looked good at all since he's come back. And again, it's a player that I don't think has a future at this club, really. He has experience. He could be a leader, I guess, if we needed him to be, but he's not really up there close to being the captain. But yeah, as I said, a player that I don't really think has a future as this club as a player. So I think I can't really see a reason for him to stay, except if we need that experience for next season, because I don't think he'd be up for it if we went to the Championship for next season, which obviously probably isn't going to happen. But I just think that too much from now, and I think that we should let him go. Oh, I just said the answer.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Well, I'm going to ask you once again anyway. Dan, is Stephen Ward staying or going at the end of the season?
He's going.
He is going well. He's now joined the pile of Luke Chambers and Cole Screws on the going pile. And currently, mode James Wilson and Toti Enciada are staying well from one side of the defence at left fullback to right fullback. And the only player on this list that is currently out on loan at the moment, yes, it is Lloyd Dinasian. He has not played at all for Ipswich Town this season, which, well, we guess he fell out of favour with Paul Lambert at his time. So he went out on loan to Fleetwood, where he's been playing quite well, actually. 13 appearances, 6 clean sheets in that time, 0 goals and 0 assists. He's been playing right mid, apparently, according to Transfer Market, which is kind of interesting. So
I didn't know that.
Oh, me neither. Until I looked up the other day, I went, he's playing right mid. I thought he's a right back. He's been playing quite well there, but he's a bit of a funny one here, really, because we've seen him play for Ipswich Town a few times. He's looked all right. He hasn't looked set the world alight, but some fans in the fan base, they want to see more of him. Some are going, he's not good enough for the club. But should Ipswich Town be keeping him on as backup to Kane Vincent-Young? Because we've seen McCain Vincent-Young. He's still very injury prone at the moment. He's just recovered back from that massive groin injury he's had and further complications. Now he's got a hamstring problem, which is not looking too good for him at the moment. But for Genoid, would he be not wanting to stay at Ipswich Town because he's getting game time somewhere else, and maybe he needs that fresh break? He needs that fresh break really to somewhere else.
Yeah, maybe he does, but Paul Cook will probably want to see more of him when he comes back to the club, and I think he could be useful here. You know, he's a player that, as I've said numerous times, I definitely wasn't a fan of him, but he really improved last year. I think around the end of last year he started playing games, and I don't think he did much wrong. You know, I guess the previous management didn't really like him, but I think that he's a player that could really be useful. I think we'll probably invest. I don't know if we'll invest, but we'll try and sign a new right back next year. Depends if Vincent-Young's fit or not. But I think that when he comes back, I think Paul Cook will have a really good look at him and see if he wants to stay on. And I can see him staying. I really can. I think he's had a good time at Fleetwood. Obviously, he wants game time, and I think that if Vincent-Young's still got these injury problems, then maybe he could fit in there and do well there, because you know he hasn't really done much wrong for us in games in the last year or so. So it's a really tough one, that one, and a weird one, because you know it kind of looks like his Ipswich career is over, but I really think that we should stick with him and see what happens in the summer. If he wants to leave himself, then I guess that's fair enough, but I'd keep him.
Well then, I'm going to have to ask you to lock in your answer there, Dan. Is Lloyd Dinasian staying at Ipswich Town, or is he going at the end of the season?
I'm going to say stay.
Stay? Wow, I was not expecting that at all. Gosh, well, it looks like he's going to be clawed away from the exit door, and he's going to be staying at Ipswich Town for a little bit longer. It'd be interesting to see what it would be, but it's currently 3-3 at the moment. 3 staying in the staying pile and 3 in the going pile at the moment. Well, Now we move on into the midfield, and the first player up is Emmy Hughes. This season has been very strange for him. He was involved a lot in the first part of the season, being in the matchday squad. But since the turn of the year, he's only had one appearance, and that was back in January versus Swindon Town. We all know how that ended. It finished 3-2 to Swindon Town on the night. But since then, he has not been involved in the matchday squad at all, apart from one substitute appearance versus Peterborough back in February. But since then, he hasn't been there. But Dan, a few seasons ago, a very highly rated player at Town. Unfortunately, got a lot of injuries, so we didn't really sort of get to see his quality as much as we would have liked. But for him at the moment, he hasn't been playing. It doesn't look like he's going to be really involved much in the Paul Cook sort of setup at the moment. He hasn't even been brought back into the matchday squad. That's how bad I think it is. But unfortunately, is the writing on the wall for him to go and have a new challenge somewhere else, because he is still 27, so he's still a little bit into his prime here.
Yeah, he's still not getting into the end of his career, is he? So it's really disappointing with Emmy Hughes, because he was such a good player when he came in on loan. I think 2017, maybe 2018.
Yeah,
no, I think it was the season before that. But it's really disappointing, because he's an absolute shadow of the player that he was then in the Championship. And I think he's fallen out of favour with Paul Cook, obviously, because he's not really been in the squad. One sub appearance, I think. I can't remember. I'm guessing the previous management was still here then. Yeah, they were. So yeah, it's unfortunate for him, because we know that he could be a good player, but as you said, I think the writing's on the wall. Really, he's out of favour with the manager. So I think in the summer, his time's going to be up. I can't really see him being at this club next year. And as I say, it's really disappointing for me, because I know that he could be a good player. He just hasn't shown it in the last few years. And yeah, I can't see his career going anywhere at Ipswich.
Yeah, it is really sad, because I can remember that goal he scored against Newcastle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, that's a long time ago.
Cool. It is a long time ago.
Flashbacks. How about it? They always like to talk about their past. But Dan, I must ask you the ultimate question here. Is Emmy Hughes staying or going at the end of the season?
He is going.
Well, then, it's currently Emmy Hughes. He is going. That is the fourth player going on this list. Currently is 4-3 to the going. But now moving on to the only player on this list that is from the Ipswich Town Academy, whose contract is up in the summer. It is Teddy Bishop. I think we could say here the first proper season since the 14/15 season where he's actually had a chance to show off his quality and consistency in the side, because most of the seasons he has been injured or he hasn't featured at all because of long-term injury. But this season he started off very strong, but then he was suddenly dropped out of the matchday squad for 7 games. But then since then he's only missed 1 game through suspension. But Dan, this is a very interesting case here of the Ipswich Academies, because most of the Ipswich Academy players have been signed back up. Luke Walton, Andre Dazelle, they have both been signed back up, but Teddy Bishop hasn't yet, which is a little bit interesting here. But has he showed enough improvement to be a part of Paul Cook's future plans here? Because he's been playing quite a lot on Paul Cook's sort of thing. He's been playing the number 10, the centre mid. He's sort of been thrown about the midfield at the moment. But has he shown that he's growing enough here and he's going to make a statement here to go to Paul Cook? I want to be in your side and I want to be playing next season consistently through and throughout, and I will be showing off my quality more.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, because I don't think any of the players have really shown enough to get a new contract, but some of them are going to need to. But with Bishop, it's really good to see that he's got a consistent, run in the side this year without any injury problems, because he's had such problems in the past, which was really unfortunate for him. It was so annoying that kept happening to him when he was coming back and looking really good. But this year, he's been okay. I think it doesn't help that he's been played in a position that I prefer him in an attacking role. I think he played number 10 in a game. I can't even remember when it was, a couple of weeks ago. It was the Lincoln game, yeah. And he looked pretty good. I much prefer him in an attacking role, and I think him in the midfield with Dazelle is a little bit too weak for me, but I don't think Bishop is that type of player. If he can get a run in the side in that attacking role, I think he can really show Paul Cook what he can do. But he's a player that I really like, and I don't want to see him go, mainly because I know what he can do, and he's a really exciting player when he's on his day. I know some people may disagree with it, but I really would like him to stay at the club. As all the players have, they've had a tough season this year, but he's a player that I'd keep.
Well, then I'm glad to ask you the ultimate question. You sort of just said it anyway, but Dan, is Teddy Bishop staying or is he leaving or going at the end of the season?
He's staying.
He is staying. Well, that's currently 4-4 now in the staying versus the going match at the moment. Currently is in the staying pile. It is James Wilson, Toto Anciala, Janoy Danasin, and Teddy Bishop. And the going pile is Luke Chambers, Cole Skews, Stephen Ward, and Emmy Hughes. Well, the judge will now see you. Yes, a very bad pun there, but I had to make a pun there. Alan Judge, this season, he has played a multitude of positions: right wing, a centre, left wing. He's not a left mid, but he's been playing there quite a lot this season. But this season has been his best at Ipswich Town, actually, by stats. But he's still being questioned a lot here by the fans, like last season, because inconsistency. But will he get that new contract because he can play a multitude of new positions? But it's watching him. He's got all the quality there when he first signed back in the relegation season. He signed, wasn't it, on the free in Brentford? But is it just he's got it all, but we're not seeing it on that consistent basis, and it's slightly disappointing. It's a bit like an Emmy Hughes situation here, but he's not been injured and he's not been dropped from the matchday squad. But it's that inconsistency that is costing him a lot here.
Yeah, he definitely is a very inconsistent player, isn't he? And again, it's disappointing because he was such a good player at Brentford. I know a lot of players come here and don't, and it's kind of the end of their career, isn't it? I think that was the same with Judge, but he's shown at times this season, maybe even last season, he's shown at times what he can do and how he can control a game. And I think it's really disappointing how inconsistent he is. The show probably knows that I'm not his biggest fan. I don't really like him very much. I liked him when he was at Brentford, but in the last few years, I've been really disappointed with him. I can see him getting a new contract. Whether I'd keep him on, I don't think I would. If I was deciding, obviously it's not up to me, but it's just his inconsistency that worries me. And I think he's not getting any younger now, is he? Is he 31, 32 now? 32. So it's getting to that point where, he's getting older now. So yes, this was a tough one for me because I think a lot of people would keep him and I think he is going to stay. But that inconsistency just worries me too much.
Well, you have the ultimate decision here. You have all the power here. So, Dan, is Alan Judge staying or going at the end of the season?
He's going.
He is going. Oh, that is sort of the big one here because that's the one I think we can say is definitely on the fence, like you said there. Some people keep him. I personally would because I think he can do it on his day, but you never know. But yeah, he is going. Alan Judge, he will not be staying this season, according to Dan. And now up next, we are going into the attack. And up next is everybody's boy, Grion Edwards. Currently at the moment, he's still Ipswich Town's second top goal scorer this season behind James Norwood, which is absolutely mad because I think he's only got 5 goals and James Norwood's only got 7.
When was the last time he scored?
I haven't.
That's just terrible, isn't it?
I unfortunately haven't got the stats for it, but I want to say off the top of my head, maybe Blackpool. It's got to be Blackpool, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Somewhere around them.
God, somewhere around there. But, as we said, that superb start to the season, 5 goals in 11 games. But then since then, he's had a thigh injury, which put him out until the beginning of 2021. He came back. He struggled quite a lot with that thigh problem, which has put him out a little bit further. But since coming back, he hasn't been able to find that form from the start of the season. But if he can find that form again, would he be what we could say a crucial player here going forward in Paul Cook's side and his plans here? Because we have seen it from Grion. He is a good player on his day. We know he can do it, but this is now where he's got to do it. And will he be able to do it to earn that contract in time?
Yeah, it will be interesting. I think he's had a really disappointing, second half to the season. He started off so well and it's just dropped off for him. But I think this is one where people might disagree with me. I like him as a player. I think, and it's not just because he did like a flick against Blackburn that one time in the Championship. I really do think there's a player there. And if we can, get in form and get our players playing well together, I think he'd be crucial to that side. There's some of the runs he could do. Sometimes he does look like he just runs for the sake of it. And I think that's probably one of the problems he has at the moment, where he just gets the ball and runs with it and doesn't really do anything. But I think, as I said, if we can get on in form, and I think he could be a really good player in this squad. So I'd like to see him stay. I know a lot of people would disagree because he's been quite disappointing this season. But I think, I really do. And I think if Paul Cook, I don't know if Paul Cook sees something in him. He seems to be playing in games recently, so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I like him and I'd keep him. I just said the answer.
But no, it's fine.
It doesn't matter.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You're sort of expressing your things here, but it's like, who wants to be a millionaire? I have to ask you to lock in your answer here. Dan, is Grion Edwards going to be staying? Everybody's boy, is he going to be staying at the end of the season, or is he going to be going this season?
I'm going to say staying.
Staying. Oh, that's another one. We're getting into the juicy ones,
Yeah,
that's
I might get some stick.
Oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. We all get stick sometimes. Well, now we are into the strikers, and there's currently 3 strikers. Well, we've got 3 players left, and all of them are strikers. Firstly, we've got Freddie Sears. He is up. He's been at the club now for 6 seasons. 6 seasons. Wow. In that time, he's made nearly 200 appearances, 199 appearances, scored in 32 of those games. But since the start of the season, he has been playing, actually. He played the start of the season because Jackson and Nord were both injured. He scored against Accrington, but then he was out of the match day squad for a little bit, only making substitute appearances here and there. But most recently under Paul Cook, he has been starting. He's made a few starts, especially that Wigan game, which we do not talk about on here. But like Chambers and Skews, a very loyal player to the club. But unfortunately, Dan, is his time up here? Is it over for him? I think there has been rumors about him going back to Colchester, if I remember correctly. But are we saying that he's in the same boat here as Cole Skews and Luke Chambers here?
Yeah, it's absolutely inevitable. I'd be very surprised if he's not at Colchester next year. Very, very surprised. So yeah, I think it's inevitable. Again, it's quite disappointing because when he signed back in the playoff year, he looked really good in that second half of the season. But I think when Mick started playing him on the wing, that weren't his natural position, and it showed. And he's just kind of stayed there for the rest of his Ipswich career, hasn't he? Which is really, it's quite disappointing that we haven't tried to. I think we've maybe tried to play him up front a few times, but mainly he's played on the wing, which isn't his natural position. But I haven't really been his biggest fan for a while now, and I think everyone knows now that his time at Ipswich is up. I think, and I reckon he'd be fine going back to Colchester at the end of this season. So yeah, another player that's getting on and doesn't really look like he's going to stay.
Well, I'm still going to have to ask you the ultimate question here, Dan, but is Freddie Sears staying or going at the end of the season?
He's going.
He is going. Oh, poor Freddie Sears. He is going. That's currently 5 on the staying pile and 6 on the going pile. And we have two more players left. Two more players. And well, we're going to be looking at now Kaden Jackson. His contract is up. Last season, he was Ipswich Town's top goal scorer, but this season has been, I think we can say, very poor from last season standards. He was injured at the start of the season, but then he was out of the matchday squad because of transfer rumors to Bournemouth. And then after that, he contracted COVID-19. He then came back into the matchday squad, only making substitute appearances, but then was dropped to the under-23 side after falling out with Paul Lambert, we reckon, because of more transfers. This time to Huddersfield were the rumours. He was off to Huddersfield trying to force a move, but since then he's been back in the side more regularly under Paul Cook, making some starting appearances, which is nice to see, and some substitute appearances here and there. But he's shown he's got brilliant form in the past when he's been playing in that two up top. But it looks like under Paul Cook, he's going to be playing more that one up top, what we can sort of guess at the moment. But does that unfortunately mean that Jackson's time at the club is over if they're going to be playing this one up top? And we know, unfortunately, he really does struggle in that one up top because he gets so isolated. But when he plays in that two, he is a different player. But Paul Cook doesn't look like he's going to be playing to his strengths.
No, he doesn't. And I think this was the toughest one for me to decide because I know he can be a good player. You know, last year alongside Norwood, he was really good, and I really liked him last year. So I think this was a really difficult one to decide. But I think what Paul Cook is looking at, and his style of play does not suit Jackson one bit at all. And I think we all know that goal scoring is the thing we're struggling at the most at the moment. We cannot score goals. So I think in the summer we need to bring in that striker that can do that. But unfortunately, I don't think Jackson is that man. And if we're going to play 4-2-3-1 as Paul Cook likes to, which is looking like we're going to keep with, unfortunately, I don't think he's going to have a place in the side, which is unfortunate for him. But I think he'd be fine going elsewhere and having a new challenge, because I think he's had a really tough season. As you said, he's fell out with Paul Lambert at the time, been banished to the under-23s, which was unfair on him, I think. He wasn't treated very well. So I think he's had a really, really tough season for him as a person as well. And I think a new challenge would be good for him, because I just don't think the style of play we have and the way Paul Cook is looking into the future, I really don't think he has a place in the squad, unfortunately.
Well, I'm still going to have to ask you here the ultimate question, but is Kaden Jackson staying or going at the end of the season?
He is going.
Oh, Kaden Jackson is leaving Ipswich Town. That, I have to say, I can hear how tough that is, because we have seen it before. He is a good player, but this season's been very tough for him on and off the pitch, and maybe a fresh challenge could be good for him. Well, we're nearly at the end of this, and we've got one more player left on this list, and it is Aaron Grion. Despite being at the club since 2017, this is his first proper season in an Ipswich Town shirt after many loan spells out. I think this is one of Mick McCarthy's random signings of an Irish player, if I remember correctly. He was brought in, but somebody who this season has been very much in and out of the squad under Paul Lambert and Paul Cook, we can say. But has he shown the quality that Ipswich Town have invested into him? He has scored his first league goal this season. I think it was very much a bundling goal against Crewe Alexander. But has he shown enough that he's going to be improving over the future here, or, is his time unfortunately up and he needs to go somewhere else and have a new challenge, like the other players were said on this list?
Yeah. I mean, no disrespect to Grion, and I hope he's not listening, but this was the easiest decision for me, and I think I do think he's a lot that he's not capable of doing. He's kind of just been brought into the squad. I think under Lambert, he was kind of just brought in randomly. I think he started the first game of the season, didn't he? And I think he was a little bit out of his depth at this level. I think a loan would probably have done him well at the start of this year, but I don't think he's done enough personally to stay at the club. his hold up play is okay, but as I said with Jackson, the thing that we're struggling with is scoring goals, and he's proven that he can't really do that. So I don't think he's done enough, and I think a lot of people will probably agree. I think maybe somewhere in the lower leagues will do him well. See if he can stick it at that level, but I think he's a little bit out of his depth at this level. And I wouldn't keep him on for next year just because we need a goal scorer, and I don't think that he's going to be able to do that, unfortunately.
Well, Dan, the last time I'm going to ever ask you this ever again. Is Andrine going to be staying or going at the end of the season?
He is going to be going.
Well, Alan Drine is going to be going at the end of the season. And well, that is all the players. We've run out of players. All 13 players have been covered for you. So Dan has given us a thought who should be staying and who will be going in the summer. And you know what? I'm going to be very nice to you. I'm going to read them out for you just again so you can see. So in the stand pile, we have got James Wilson, Tota Nsiala, Janoy Donashin, and Teddy Bishop, and Grion Edwards staying at the club for next season. But in the going pile, we've got Luke Chambers, Cole Skews, Stephen Ward, Emmy Hughes, Alan Judge, Freddie Sears, Kaden Jackson, and Aaron Drinan. That is quite a lot. Well, Dan, thank you very much for giving me your thoughts and joining me today of who should be staying and who should be going at Ipswich Town at the end of the season.
No problem.
Well, as always, thank you very much. Before we go, better mention the social medias: Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram talk_pitch, Mixcloud is Pitchside Talk, and listen back to any of our previous shows. But if you're here on YouTube, make sure you click that subscribe button because we might have some more videos like this coming out in the future. And we do upload our shows on the Friday so you can see them come out as well. Well, that's just leaves everything done. I must say now, I've been George. We'll see you whenever. And bye.
See ya.